Hello, everybody. We are super in time and ready to start this webinar. And thank you for joining us. Let's give people a few minutes to connect. In the meanwhile, let me welcome all of you for joining us today. I am Nicole Carvelli, Edugo.AI Business Development Executive. I'm currently speaking from Italy, and today I have the pleasure to introduce you these session speakers. So from one hand, we have the Eaquals Accreditation Board member, Chris Farrel, and on the other, we have Edugo.AI founder and CEO, Giuseppe Tomasello. So first, I'll ask you, Chris and Giuseppe, to give a brief introduction of yourself to our audience. So Chris, would you like to start?
I'd love to, yeah. Thank you, Nicole. So my name is Chris Farrel. My current role is the head of training and development with a group called Centre of English Studies Group. We've 8 schools in the UK, Ireland and Canada. And as Nicole said, I'm a board member with Eaquals Accreditation Organisation. And I guess today my role is to talk through my experiences and my expertise on the area of moving to online, and not only from the academic perspective, but also from the institutional perspective.
That's great. Giuseppe, it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for the introduction. So my name is Giuseppe Tomasello. I am the CEO and founder of Edugo.AI. I actually started this company around 3 years ago with the objective of using AI technology to enhance the human interaction that is at the core of language learning. And right now, actually, our technology is used by some big language schools around the world in order to move from offline to online successfully. And so I'm so happy actually to be here today with Chris, having Chris as a co-host, because Chris is going to cover some of the topics, some of the key challenges of moving online, and he has a lot of experience working in so many language schools, so he observed a lot of what are those key challenges. And then after Chris' presentation, I introduce you a platform and do a quick demo. So it's going to be a live demo where we're going to show to you some of those features that we build in order to address those specific challenges. At the end, actually, we're going to have a Q&A, so I'm really looking forward to have some discussion and interaction with all of you guys. So please stay with us till the end, and then let's have some fun interaction, because we are here to have actually a live webinar, because we can interact with you. And so even if you have some questions in the meantime, drop in the chat room, and we'll try to get over all those questions at the end.
Exactly. So thank you guys for the introduction, and thank you once again for being with us, because I'm sure that your expertise will definitely help us to move online properly. In fact, today the topic is moving your language school online. As Giuseppe a little bit anticipated, today we are gonna cover the critical areas of assessment, LMS, and quality control. And in particular, we are going to give you some tips on how to be successful in each areas from both a pedagogical and digital and technological point of view. We are also going to present the digital tools available in the market and present the case studies of Edugo.AI platform. Then, as Giuseppe said, we are going to have the session dedicated to all the questions you might have. So remember that the chat box that you will find at the right of your screen will stay open, and bring them all up. So at this point, I think that we are ready to start. So Chris, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Giuseppe. So this whole area of what we're going to talk about, to be honest, a lot of people have really lived it in the past 12 months, the past 14 months, and to actually dig into everybody's different contexts and the challenges they've faced, we could do this for a week. We're going to really do a quick overview of some of the main challenges you may have faced, and perhaps some of the solutions, you know, that you have come to yourself, or maybe that you haven't yet come to and you'd like to look at. The first big thing we have to look at is majority of language schools are operating primarily in a bricks and mortar capacity, you know, in that face-to-face capacity. And in March last year or February, earlier, depending on the region of the world you were in, they were forced to move into what we might call a clicks and mortar, or a wholly online or a blended online and face-to-face situation with no real preparation, this emergency online teaching, as it has been called. And what happened in a lot of different contexts is that the students went online, the teachers went online, but the institution didn't. The institution didn't follow them online because it actually had no mechanism to understand what it needed to do and then actually to enact that. So we have to start back in March, at the beginning of the pandemic, in whatever, as I said, whatever region you were in, and start to think what actually makes a good school, and how can we begin to move all of those individual aspects into an online context. So the whole idea was people have done it quickly and they've had to do it quickly, and now we're looking at doing it properly. And I'm going to be relying on two different things here. First, I've written a course for NILE, Norwich Institute of Language and Education, called Take Your School Online. And a lot of the principles in this session are elaborated upon and dug into in a deeper way on this course. And we're also going to be reliant on the Equals Accreditation Framework, because Equals Accreditation Framework gives us a clear idea of what a good school or good language institution should look like. So what we're trying to do is take these key principles of what a good language institution looks like and see which of them we need to actually move online, and which of them is actually okay to exist in a traditional context, for example. So when we look down through the individual aspects of this accreditation framework, we've got some easy victories for us. Typically, our management and administration internally, whatever way we might interact with colleagues, there's obviously an online element to it already pre-pandemic, so we don't need to modify that too much. Academic resources need slight bit of evolution rather than revolution. Staff profile and development, again, it's more of a case of substitution and augmentation rather than a modification of what we do. So we don't need a massive revolution in any of these areas. Staff employment terms, internal communications, external communications are generally small changes in the institution, not something we have to worry about immediately. However, if we look at areas like the learning environment, there are quite significant modifications we need to consider. Course design and supporting systems, and again, these are all part of what Equals Accreditation Framework says is a good school or a good institution. Client services will require consideration, who are your clients, who are the stakeholders, and how are we actually dealing with all these stakeholders. And the three big areas, according to this framework, which actually need complete revolution when we're moving into an online context, is teaching and learning, assessment and certification, and quality assurance. And quality assurance, it covers a huge amount. It's a very much an umbrella term which covers how you're actually monitoring success in all of the systems that you're doing, and how you're trying to think of a centralized way to ensure that everybody is on the same page and everybody is kind of pulling in the same direction. When we look at teaching and learning, this is very much in the academic context, which we're not going to cover a huge amount today. But judging by some of the comments in the LinkedIn group we've looked at, the academic consideration is obviously still massive, and it might be worthwhile perhaps doing a follow-up session looking primarily at the academic aspects of it. And then, as I said, assessment and certification is massive, because if you're an institution and you're not standardizing progress and assessing progress and progressing learners, then are you fulfilling your mandate as an educational institution? So it really is something we have to understand how we're doing, how we're monitoring, how we're ensuring validity and reliability, and things like that. So from that, we're going to focus today on three particular areas. As I said, assessing learners and assigning level and class, moving the LMS into the online world, and our quality control in an online context. When I talk about assessing learners and assigning level and class, what I'm really focused on is ensuring that learners are in the right level, generally in the right area, ensuring that the teachers are consistently aware of how they're going to understand learner level, understand learner development in a number of different learning outcomes and areas, and assuring ourselves, our institution, our teachers, and our students that teachers are consistently able to assess and progress. So we're not just talking about giving a general test at the start of term and then at the end of term. Assessment means understanding if the teacher can set and choose the appropriate learning outcome. They can set and choose the appropriate success criteria in the lesson, and they can understand how they're going to be progressing the students. Okay, this is a really, really important consideration if we talk about quality in language education, because it's easy to do things badly. It's easy to just give a general test and then say, oh, all the learners are of a particular level. But what we want to focus on is empowering the teachers and the students to be able to actually assess students on a consistent basis and progress them based on their own needs. So setting appropriate challenges. This requires teacher training as well, but it also requires the institution being aware of what's happening in the classroom, the institution actually having that fundamental knowledge. One thing which we're severely lacking in the past 12 months is what we call a model of best practice. Institutions don't know what best practice looks like in an online context. So frequently they're reliant on snippets of information and snippets of teacher feedback and student feedback. And this all leads to decisions being made based on hunches rather than data. And we need data in order to ensure that we are progressing students appropriately and we're not just wasting student time. As I said, with the learner management system into an online world, learner management is not just about classing or placing students. It's about ensuring that there is a communication framework where the students are able to be in touch with the relevant people if they have, a complaint or if they have a request or just in terms of pastoral care, if you need to look after the students. If it's done badly, then the teacher is the only point of contact, and we can't have that. We need to ensure that there's appropriate mechanisms for the learners to be able to, not only be managed by the institution, but actually, feel loved by the institution in a way. And then quality control, as I said, covers a multitude of sins. When we dig into a little bit in assessment, if we look really at the data, at the Equals framework and what Equals says the assessment should look like in your school. As I said, I always want to go back to the Equals Accreditation Framework models of best practice to ensure that we are bringing all of that online. Equals says that assessment procedures are compatible with the institution's educational philosophy and course objectives. Fine. In a traditional context, this is fine. Does the institution need to revisit its educational philosophy and course objectives in an online context? I would suggest yes. I would suggest that we're not just moving everything we have into an online context, but we're actually really considering what the online context does to the educational process. And I'm not just talking about the constraints, but I'm really talking about the opportunities. Because when we move into an online context, we have the world is opened up in the sense that we also can access students, or we can ensure accessibility to students who previously mightn't have had access to education, but also we can access resources, tools, and different ways we can develop certain skills. And this is going to change us. It's going to change our course objectives. It's going to change our educational philosophy. I believe in many cases it will. Also with assessment, placement procedures are appropriate to the learning context and to the learner's needs. In an online context, perhaps the learner's needs are not the same as they might be in a traditional context. So that's something we have to consider. Placement procedures, the way the students will actually use certain skills might be slightly different to the face-to-face context. So we have to understand that when we're placing people, we're judging skill development, we're judging skill use. It is with the context constraints or the context opportunities in consideration. The systems for assessing language competence are reliable, valid, and fair. And this is not always just about students might cheat if it's an online context. You know, we all know that cheating is, you're only cheating yourself really if you're cheating on an assessment like this. But it's for this institution to have in place assessment which is valid for the context. So if it's just a grammar test exercise, ticking boxes, you know, it might not be actually valid for what they're trying to do. We really have to understand what the learners are doing online, how they're using the language online, and what might be an actual valid and fair assessment of their language competency online. And I would suggest that our assessment of language competency does need to be revisited, whether that's a look at what the CEFR looks like in an online context, what mediation skills, for example, look like in an online context, and how that they can be fairly assessed. And then finally, we have to look at this, the idea of certification, because in a lot of cases, assessment is focused on certification. A lot of students actually want a certificate to say they are a particular level, and whether the assessment of level that we currently have in place is appropriate. So assessment is a really big area where I think it's ripe for modification. It's ripe for redefinition in an online context. And I do think as a school, you can't just say, this is our test procedure, now it's online. We need to redo it. We need to reconsider it. When we talk about the LMS, as I've mentioned before, the learner management system, there's one big area for me, and I do think it is a concern for students, and it has been a concern for students and teachers in the past year, and that's safeguarding and protecting, especially for junior learners, learners under 18 or learners who might be in a vulnerable position. It is the school or the educational institution's responsibility to ensure that students' data, for one, is safeguarded, but also the student, him or herself, feels safe in their educational space. And it starts at the idea of cameras on, but it moves on to cyberbullying and other things with the institution. Will need to have policies in place in order to ensure that they're understanding new traditional ways of bullying or non-traditional ways of how the learners might feel unsafe in the particular space. This is really context specific. It really is reliant and dependent on where you are and what you're doing in your particular space, but it is something which cannot be ignored. Course design and support systems. I think course design needs to be revisited, needs to be redone. When we talk about the support systems, it could be anything from teacher development, teacher training, towards access to certain platforms, access to certain materials. These all need to be reconsidered. You need to actually sit down and say, what do we do in context A? Is it still the same, or does it need to be redone? Context B, context C. So these all need to be consciously redone. As I said before, with client services, it really does depend on your context, but who are the stakeholders? Client in many cases might be the parents of the students. How are you actually dealing with them? How are you meeting with them? How are you informing them? How are you ensuring that they have a stake in their child's education? And then finally, with the learner management system, it's ensuring that the learning environment is consistently fruitful for the students. It's consistently beneficial to all students. It's really, really easy in an online context for one or two students to be ignored and to be left out, to fall between the cracks, especially in a lot of contexts now where schools are looking at blended learning. They're looking at the flipped classroom, and the flipped classroom might lend itself a little bit more to the learners being independent, the learners taking control of their own education. But a lot of learners are not ready for this. And it's not something you can suddenly just flick the switch and do overnight. You really do have to involve the learners, train the learners, and also provide a clear pathway for learners who are perhaps less able to follow what you want to do. The role of the teacher, the role of the institution is not just to teach the course. Of course, it's to teach the student. So we really, really do need to ensure that our systems and our learning environment are all conducive to education for that student, that particular student who is going to be left behind, because it's just not acceptable to leave one behind. And finally, and it leads into all of them, is quality control. And quality control, it's massive. It covers a lot of areas, but it also is reliant on the institution actually knowing what quality looks like. So we know what quality looks like in a face-to-face traditional context, and we need to begin to understand what quality looks like in the ranges of online learning, which we're involved in. And this involves the communication of quality standards and model lessons of what a model lesson might look like, what a model online course might look like. Because teachers, now we have a lot of experience, but we have a lot of experience of what we do. We don't always have a lot of experience of what other teachers are doing. And this is going to be the great awakening of 2021, when we actually do get to understand what went on in a lot of online classes and how that might come back into the traditional classroom, if possible. We need to also think about systems of recording and observing lessons, and actually having that bank of knowledge and understanding from that bank of knowledge. And then, as I mentioned before, with blended learning, this concept of synchronous and asynchronous methods of feedback and appraisal, and having that live and non-live spaces for teachers to exist in as well, not just students. So from the institutional perspective, to be able to look after the teachers in a live context, but also being able to give them access to material, videos, and whatever else that they might need in order to improve themselves as teachers and understand their context a little bit more. And for this, there's a million different tools. There's a million different tools online. Anybody who's been involved in online education in the past 14 months, I've been talking to people a lot about it recently, have discovered and become quite proficient in tools they would never have gone near, they would never have used. And I think Zoom has been the big one. I've also put Google Drive there. I think there's been a huge reliance on the G Suite tools for education, or the Google, even the Google individual tools. Google Classroom, I think, has been massive. And then things like Camtasia or Screencast-O-Matic for screen recording, screen grab technology, I think has become very big for people sharing what's happening in their lessons or whatever. And one of the big things I'm going to look at is how are we using these tools? How do they speak to each other? And how it might be, and Giuseppe's going to get onto it, it might be much better if we had one tool that did a lot of these. When we dig a little bit deeper, we want to ensure that these tools, the tools that we're using, allow for communication and allow for us to develop as an institution and build this body of knowledge. What I've found frequently is that we are using so many tools that the tools actually hamper communication, because you don't know where the communication is coming from. Is it going to be in an email? Did you put it in the Google Doc? Did you put it there? This is between colleagues. This is from teacher to teacher, but also teacher to student, student to institution. There has to be really clear lines of communication and really clear lines of feedback. And currently, in a lot of cases, it's a bit up in the air of what the actual procedures are for X, Y, and Z. So I do think the tools are great, but we need to have 3 or 4 of them, or ideally as few as possible. When we talk about communication, I'm going to throw a lot more tools at you. Obviously, we've got Classroom, Google Classroom there. We've got things like SuggestionOx, SurveyMonkey, Mentimeter. These are all data collection, because we do want to gather as much information on current procedures and current practice as possible. We do need to understand that there must be an open door policy in institutions, so we can collect the data and we can learn, but we need a door in order to have an open door policy. So you need an actual vehicle. You need a vehicle which is going to allow you to drive feedback and to learn as an institution as you go through this, and not just little snips of information. We also need to understand what we want feedback on. Because frequently we're collecting data, but we need to ensure we're asking the right questions. So I hope now, after 12 months, or more in many cases, we're beginning to understand what we do and what we don't do, and what we need to learn more about. And I think that's our goal, or our learnings for the next few months is really to think, what's the future of online learning for us as an institution? The two big tools, and I've mentioned G Suite for Education already, but Microsoft Teams has emerged as one of the big winners, I think, in the past year. A lot of people found it quite inappropriate at the start because it's not designed for education, but so a lot of institutions have used it primarily for connections between colleagues rather than connections between colleagues and the classroom element of it. It's more being used from the administrative perspective. Fine. And there's almost this battle now between what do you use? Do you use Google or Microsoft? But there's a huge amount of other tools which, you know, we could use. Again, I just want to throw the logos at you because many of you are going, oh yeah, I use that, or we use that, or we use that. And there's so many of them, and they're not talking to each other across institution. And as a sector, as a profession, some people are reliant completely on X and not using Y, and I'm definitely trying to untangle why people have chosen that particular tool and not that. You know, Padlet is up there. Some people use Padlet only in the classroom. Some of it use it as a digital notice board for events for their school. Some of it a suggestion box or whatever. You know, we've got Trello for project management. We've got Box, similar to Dropbox. We've also got things which might be kind of LMS related, like Edmodo, Flipgrid as well. And then screen recording, communication, we've got survey. Slack is obviously massive for project management. Lifesize as well, in a similar way to Zoom. So there's loads and loads of things which, you know, we can look at, we can use. But ideally, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a teacher, a trainer, also an academic manager, I would love if there was one thing that we could use for the majority of what we need, and it actually served my purposes as a teacher, but also allowed the institution to understand and see what was happening in my classes and in other classes, and allowed the institution to make data-driven decisions in terms of teacher training, in terms of dealing with students and growing as an institution. So, as I've already said, ideally what we want to do is understand if it's a limited number of tools, what tools we might actually need, and how these tools might actually benefit us immediately, not just in the long term, but actually immediately benefit the school, the teachers, the students, all of the key stakeholders. So that was a really whistle-stop tour of these three areas. And as I said to Nicole and Giuseppe, we can talk about this for the day. That was a really quick overview of a year, but we could dig into every single one of them. And I'm just looking at some of the notes, some of the comments and questions there to see if anybody wants me to answer anything in particular. Greetings from Bangkok. Hello from Italy. Yeah, there's going to be a recording, and Nicole has already answers. How many cases of cyberbullying? Stephen has asked, how many cases of cyberbullying have occurred because of language teaching can you think of? Anecdotally, I know from our perspective, we don't allow student-to-student, this is in Zoom, we don't allow student-to-student comments typically in a session. The students are not allowed to comment to each other. And that's unfortunate because in class they can comment to each other, but I would imagine it's quite prevalent. If there's already bullying going on, I would say cyberbullying is a natural extension. My concern would be the teacher is blind to it. If bullying is happening in a physical classroom, the teacher might pick up on bits and pieces and they might be able to see. But cyberbullying means that the student is just being, they can't escape it. You know, it's coming straight to them every time they're on a social media or they're online, and the teacher has no idea what's happening, and people are isolated. So I would be concerned. It might be no more than is happening in a traditional context, but I think it's less detectable, and that's a concern for me. May I ask for sample model lessons? I think, it's something that as a sector, whether it's nationally or locally or in your own context, you should have a body of recording of model lessons. And I think it is something that a lot of institutions in the UK and Ireland are looking at, creating their own internal body of recordings. Obviously, there's issues with data protection about sharing recordings without the students' permissions and this kind of stuff. So I don't know of any centralized model of lessons which has been created yet. What is the first? Oh, sorry. I'm just going to finish the questions, and then I know I've 1 minute left. Sorry. What is the first logo of the tools for the feedback collection? Sorry, Kath has asked me the first logo for the feedback collection. Dun, 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 dun. This one? No. What did I mention? This one here, Google Drive. Is that it? That was the first logo, is Google Drive, I think, or was it this one here, Google Classroom? If in doubt, it's Google. What you're telling is so true and up to date. Thank you. Open door policy. I'm having issues. An open door policy. Open door policy is basically the students can just come and speak to the manager or whoever's in charge. But in an online context, they can't. There's no mechanism frequently, so there has to be that. It is Google Classroom. Sorry, Agatha has answered that already. Evernote. Okay. Okay. You can go, Giuseppe. Sorry, I know I'm cutting.
No problem at all. We can actually go through other questions at the end of the session. So
I just scanned them quickly, but I don't know. Okay.
Sure. So thank you so much, Chris. Actually, it's been amazing. I've been taking notes because that's a lot of really useful information. And I also myself have a lot of questions for you, but of course we need to stick for our time schedule and actually finish the webinar in time. But then actually, I think we can also do some follow-up webinars and go deeper in some of those topics, because I think there is a lot of ways we can actually bring these topics into expand on all those topics that we have been covering. What we will actually like to do right now, since you cover a little bit about different topics, is to show you how our platform Edugo.AI is actually compliant with some of those key points that you highlighted, that Chris highlighted. And so we're going to demo to you guys actually how our platform works. And so we can actually explore a little more into some more practical features and how you can be compliant with those points. So the first one actually we would like to show to you today is Edugo Learning Management System. And so we give actually the power to a school to move basically all the pedagogical content online, and then actually being able to collect all the data from the students, and so be able to monitor and do quality control over what is the students actually doing during the learning experience in the platform. So Nicole, I will ask you kindly to share your screen so we can actually go live and see the platform in action.
Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, so we can see your screen. So the first part that we would like to show to you is actually how you can create lessons inside the Edugo platform. And this actually, we've been working on creating a really simple interface where you can just upload multimedia content in the platform and then use AI to automatically generate exercises that then are interactive. So we don't have the time to demo to you all this creation part works. So yeah, there is a webinar actually in our YouTube channel you can go watch just specific for that part. We just showed to you one example of one lesson in the platform. So this specific lesson is about grammar. So
hello and welcome to today's English lesson. My name is Stuart. In today's lesson.
So this actually is a video of a teacher explaining some grammar structures, right? And so usually what you have in an online environment like Google Classroom will be simply a video. But what we do, we actually transform this video into like an interactive experience. So for example, on the top, you can see different skills, such as the speaking skill. So we can extract like a key sentence from the video.
How long has Jeff been going out with Sally?
And then the students can practice.
How long has Jeff been going out with Sally? Okay.
So here, actually, the student can get a feedback on pronunciation, and it's really specific for language learning. So I actually see a question how this is different from other platforms such as the Teachable. These are really, really specific for language learning. In this case, actually, it's for English, but as we can see later on, we can actually deploy the platform for different languages. So since the platform is really specific for language learning, therefore, we are able to collect really specific kind of piece of information about the student performance, and therefore getting more accurate data about what is student problems during the class. So these are a little bit how the lesson works, and then you can basically get all those lessons you create in the platform, package as a courses, and basically create curriculum inside the platform, publish the curriculum, and be able to distribute that to all the students in the school. So this is actually how you create a course. It can be free or paid course. And so you can add the lessons to the curriculum, and then you can publish the course. And now you can actually see all the students enrolling in the course and basically being able to monitor what's the performance of the students in the course. Okay, thank you, Nicole. So that's actually one piece of our technology, and I think it's filling a lot of these points that Chris has been talking about. Of course, we're not able to go really deep inside all the single details about this feature, but if you have more questions later on, we're able to explore. So we can go and touch the second point. This is about the assessment part. So Nicole, you can actually...
I can share my screen again?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So can you see now?
Yep.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so the assessment part. So as Chris mentioned, actually, there are two kinds of assessment. One is actually more traditional, like at the beginning of when you enroll in the course, and at the end. And so that's actually what you're able to do with our technology will be to create an assessment or placement test. So it's really simple. You can put it like in your landing page, and then the student is able to basically, thanks to those interactive exercises, actually like assess the level. So in this case, it's actually for Chinese. And yeah, we're not able to go through all the assessment, even though Nicole's Chinese is pretty good. But you can have different kind of interactive elements of this in this placement test. So it can be multimedia content and different kind of interactive exercises that can really be customized the specific pedagogical, let's say, pedagogical beliefs of your school. So in this case, actually, Nicole get HSK4, which is kind of, if you're familiar with the Common European Framework, is like a B2 in Chinese, so good job. And then you're able to see some courses that are suggested for the student that are basically for the specific level. So now the student can actually enroll in the course. And so as you saw before, actually, the course can be created according to the material of school already have. And so this can be really customized, and basically is a way that to move basically all the content you have online, and then actually have a really smooth onboarding for the students in the school. Of course, we have the assessment at the beginning, so the placement test, but then is a continuous assessment. So now Nicole can enroll in the course, continue to study, and have this stream of data that is going every day into the dashboard of the school manager and the teacher, so you're able to monitor the Nicole progress over time. So it's not only like a snapshot, but it's basically a video of Nicole performance over time. And that's actually what Chris was talking about. I believe that is something like you are able actually to monitor the progress of the student online. And this, I believe, is the opportunity of having a system online, because right now, actually, you have tools that you're not to have. So just, the technology is able to save all the information about the student, and then it's able to display the information in a usable way to the teachers and the school managers. We can touch the last point. So thank you so much for being with us till almost the end of this webinar. I'm so happy still we have many people connected. So the last point is actually about the quality control. And actually, Chris mentioned a lot about quality control and how like you can record, for example, the synchronous interaction between teacher and students. And actually, we do something really special there. So Nicole, please, can you share your screen? And we can see a little bit our synchronous, how the synchronous part of our platform actually works. So actually, our platform supports a video call system that is really specific for language learning. So it's really different than Zoom because we have really specific tools that are designed for language learners. So Nicole now is as a teacher, so as the interface of a teacher, so you can start a video call. And for example, you can share tools, for example, like interactive exercises during the video call that are taken from the learning management system. And yeah, so for example, here she can access to some of those exercises that have been created beforehand and actually send to the student and create these engaging activities during the class. And of course, in this way, we're also able to collect all the mistakes students are making during the class. And so after the video call is over, actually what is our system is recording the content of the video call, and as an output will generate a report about the content of the video call. And this is actually really useful to monitor the quality of the class on one end. So now actually the parents and the school managers can actually enter in and actually watch the full class. So here we can replay the video of the class. So in this way, actually we can monitor.
And let's say that you'd like
the interaction with the teacher and student, and there might be some problems during this interaction. Moreover, our AI system is actually processing the content, and we are able to extract useful bits of information during the class. And this is actually really unique that in Zoom and other platforms you're not able to get this kind of automatic extraction of useful content. That is, in this way, actually, you're able to collect all this useful information. So here, for example, you can see the key sentences that is being taught during the class. And if you click the button, you can actually get the frame of the video when the teacher actually is saying that specific sentence.
I am the digital marketing expert.
So basically, this is taken from the actual all the video call, all the conversation. We're able to extract those bits of information, and so creating some structure in what is usually unstructured data, basically. And what is actually really useful for students to increase engagement, and also to, as Chris mentioned about the personalization, is that the system is creating exercises depending on the specific kind of performance of each student. So here, actually, this content is taken from the video call, and then actually the student can go through all these different kind of exercises that are generated from the interaction with the teacher. And this is actually what gives the student a really personalized experience, because now the student can learn those pieces of information or piece of language points that are really relevant for these learning objectives. Yeah, so I'm sorry we're going through this really quickly. So I know there's a lot of information. So, but we want to just give you an overall overview and try to touch as many points as possible to be actually really fit to what Chris said before. So that's actually our little demo and this little case study. If you are interested to know more, of course, we keep in contact us. We can do a demo for you, and we can actually show to you some specific part of our system that you are more interested in.
It's definitely, Giuseppe, that's brilliant. It's definitely from the academic perspective and even from the school management perspective, it's great to see a platform that is actually designed for education. You know, because frequently a lot of these stuff we use them, but they're not purposely built for education. Whereas this one, it's a lot more logical in the sense that it does the things that you would want it to do from an online perspective. So that's always refreshing, I think. Anyway, thank
you so much, Chris. I really appreciate a lot. This feedback means a lot for us. And now, actually, we can open up to question answers. I think there are already some questions, both for Chris and me. Actually, so guys, for both of us, if we can answer. Chris is an expert. I'm more on the practical side of building those tools. So feel free to ask any kind of questions.
Exactly. So some questions that I see, I try to group them, ask about gamification of the platform. So if you guys would like to say something about this.
That's Giuseppe's question, I think. Anything related to the platform, Giuseppe?
Okay. So I can tell more about gamification in our platform, and then, of course, Chris, I'm sure he has a lot of things to say about gamification as a way to engage students, because we talked about that before. But on our platform, you have gamification into the exercises. So every time you interact with those gamified exercises, actually the student is getting feedback. And we are creating actually leaderboards based on what is the score that the student is getting from these little games. It's like Duolingo, basically. So you are doing exercises and getting actually those points, and then you have badges and leaderboard based on this interaction with those exercises. Yeah.
Then we have another question by Ali saying, can we say it was built from the ground around language needs?
Yeah, so actually the platform, I created the platform. Maybe I tell you, like, since you're asking how it was built, I created the platform because I want to learn Chinese. And the idea was, like, I want to get from my teacher as many information as possible and as much personalized as possible. So I built the first tool. As a tech guy, actually I created this little tool. And so, like, was to feed my own language needs. And the platform is still really, really focused on the language learning side. So we really, I will say, like, since I also saw before the questions regarding what is the difference with Teachable or other generic LMS, is our technology is super specific for language learning. Yeah. And it was really built upon that.
Exactly. Then another question, always related to the platform, is about the languages and if it is supported, if Dutch is supported. Then Chris, I will do yours. Don't worry.
So yeah, you can visit our website, which is Edugo.AI, and yeah, Dutch is supported. So you can see, actually, we have all the languages are supported there. Of course, Chinese and English, as we show in the demo today, but also French, German, and the main European languages are all supported.
Exactly. Then we have the one, but I think that you maybe, Chris, replied before about the online door. So do you suggest...
Yeah, I'll just do quickly. Yeah, no, that idea is basically having as many lines of communication as possible and having as clear as possible. And frequently in an online school, which you know, emergency online school, the only lines of communication were student to teacher, teacher to institution, and it's just not, it's not great. You should have the opportunity for the institution to have clear lines of communication with all key stakeholders, and an open door policy, so they know exactly who's who and how they can access that person.
Okay, great. Yeah. Then we still have some. They are all related to Edugo platform, I think, because Chris, you already replied.
Yeah. I've done this before. I know. Get all of the questions stuff.
Okay. So Giuseppe, one for you is can you translate the platform for someone who is non-native English speaker?
Absolutely. Yeah, the platform can be translated, both the interface, so like all the little buttons and icons can be, I mean, icons cannot be translated, but the buttons can be translated, all the description can be translated. So the interface part, but also the language learning side can be translated. For example, we have like these dictionary pairs. So for example, if learning Italian from Russian, you can have like this kind of dictionary that would be translated from Italian to Russian. And also all the exercises would be actually fit for this specific language pair.
Okay. Then we have another question from Huang, who is asking how to manage the use of Google search during the lesson. I mean, I prefer to keep the student thinking about the question for a while.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, Chris, maybe
you can't. I think we have what we in education, I think in life, we have acceptable failures, you know, things which are we have to accept that we cannot control. If we're teaching online, we cannot control the fact that students might use Google for X, Y, and Z. So if we're talking about using Google, it's in an assessment perspective. We have to think about questions that they can't Google, or questions that, you know, it needs some sort of personalization, or maybe it needs some sort of face-to-face spoken assessment. We cannot prevent students from doing a certain thing, so we have to ensure that our assessment procedures, our achievement of learning outcomes, are done in a way that thing that we can't prevent is not an issue. That's what I would say.
Right.
So we have other question. Mandy is asking, can I say that the platform is for teachers instead of a school?
Yeah, so actually the platform is both for teachers and schools. So the interfaces we show you today are more for the teacher side, but we have all the parts about the school management side of the platform. We didn't have enough time to go through it. But basically, we have a specific kind of user in our platform, which will be the school manager, and can actually monitor all the behaviors of all the students and teachers of the platform. But yeah, we also actually provide the platform to teachers. Right now, it's for teachers inside the school. we are now working with a group of beta teachers, like it's a beta group of teachers to try to see how they can use it as a freelance teachers. So if some of you are freelance teachers and would like to enter in the beta test group and use the platform with your students as with the new features we are developing, you're welcome to contact us and we can actually show to you how to do it.
Definitely. Right. Then another question that is, if can we have more than one student in a live lesson on the platform?
Yes, you can. You can have more than one student, and actually, like that's a really interesting way that we are generating personalized review according to the student's performance and according to the student previous history. So that's actually something that is really interesting that, for example, in Zoom, you cannot do it because the Zoom, you just get actually a recording of the video call. In our system, we actually, the recording of the video call is processed by our AI and then is actually generating exercises according to a specific profile of each student. And I think that's adding this level of personalization that is really well needed right now.
Great.
I like that you already have an offer in the chat of somebody that wants to buy the platform. Amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that we have time just for one last question. Then for all the others you might have, guys, just drop your question in the chat box and we will reply via email after this session. So the last one is asking Guadalupe if can students have access also to their performance online?
Right now, actually, we are showing the performance to the teachers, but yeah, we are actually exploring this possibility as a future feature to build. It's in our roadmap, but is really tricky. So showing student performance to the students is actually like from an educational point of view. I mean, Chris can actually comment on that, but it would be tricky to what kind of performance to show to them. What kind of mistakes and other things to show.
Yeah, it would have to be understood in the context what you mean by performance as well. I think it's definitely something which could be modified based on internal what's happening in the school or what you want to focus on. But I wouldn't always be a fan of supporter of judging everything as performance and monitoring all the time. Sometimes you just need to let the students be or let the class go on or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. So we don't want to overwhelm students with so many data points. Say, oh, you did 500 mistakes during this call. You know that the student will get demotivated. So it's really tricky to understand what to show or not to show to the student.
Exactly. Okay, so since it has been almost an hour of this session, I'd like to thank you, all of us, for being with us till the end. Thank you also for the interesting question, and thanks to Giuseppe and Chris for giving us, for sharing your knowledge about this topic. We can definitely follow up with other questions via email, or if you'd like to contact both us at Edugo or Chris for any kind of pedagogical or technological tips, we will be available. And so check your email so you will have the contacts of all of us. And thank you so much.
I would like to finish is, guys, follow our YouTube channel. Because we will publish this recording there, and you can comment also there and share the recording because everything will be there. And I will reward the court. So there's so many information I want to get over again. Great, thank you so much, everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.